Sorry about that interruption, the phone glitch. So from war to the state of the financial markets to the underlying kind of thrust of energy in this kind of very pathological drive towards unmitigated growth and individualism, they are all a function of pathologically adolescent masculinity. And so whilst people are starting to become aware of that, kind of unwanted knowledge that I have, I didn't really, I kind of started out on a personal inquiry when I was in my kind of mid to late 30s about what masculinity is, and was already had transitioned away from corporate life in my early 30s and was working as a psychologist. So I had about 10 years worth of psychological training and understanding and experience in my own healing and growth process under my belt at that point, which was a bit of a fierce initiation, given my background, fundamentalist Christian upbringing, violence at home, at school, religion, blah blah blah. So reorienting towards something generative, and I was really lucky to have teachers both here, indigenous communities in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and I can't even begin to express my gratitude for the indigenous culture, people, rituals that I was invited to participate and on one occasion facilitate of the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest. I mean, a profound gift that brought all of my psychological knowledge, I gave it all a foundation and gave it all meaning, actually. A deep resonant meaning, not just a rational kind of idea, but a deep sense of being plugged into this incredible thing. So what I see in the kind of emergent world of men's work with people I know, people I've spent time with, sat in circle with, we might say, is that as they come to understand this, they're picking up the echoes of the last kind of the initial wave of awakening in contemporary times, and that would be, quite clearly Robert Moore, who was a mentor of mine for a long time. Had good conversations indeed. When my inquiry became serious around this work was meeting Robert Moore in Findhorn in 2007. I'm pretty sure it's 2007. There's a film out with some of that dialogue of Robert. It says it's 2005, but I know I was on the other side of the planet at 2005 when the film says it was out, so that can't be the right date. Anyway, that aside, that was the Robert Bly waking everybody up with his book Iron John, which is a beautiful story and brilliantly told. I mean, such an amazing poet. It's like the male psychological version of Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. It's beautiful and really powerful, really enchanting, but it misses out. It deals with the mythological layer and hopes that by introducing people to the mythological layer, they will kind of get some sense of what else is available to them, and that somehow that will just constellate and wake up in them. But that's not true. So you have a lot of people chucking around terms and off the back of somatic experiencing, which is a trauma, a physical trauma, a shock trauma treatment protocol, Again, incredibly useful for releasing neuromuscular locks. But that does not touch the developmental trauma aspect of the psyche, the deep relational structure, the intrapsychic and the interpersonal. So you have lots of people chucking the word somatic in with their work. So you have ecosomatic and mythosomatic. Tempting, enchanting, alluring titles, very kind of wow, but it continues the kind of magical thinking aspect that there is something out there. My approach is skills based. My approach is you don't need to dress up like a Native American Indian. You don't need to have rattles and drums. You don't need to bring your faux samurai sword or your faux bros, people you spent 10 minutes with, and because they're men you're like, yeah bro, yeah brother, all this kind of assumed intimacy, which is really just code for groupthink in my experience, and gets very ugly when the shit hits the fan, which it's gonna hit the fan, right? The thing about shit is it's designed to hit the fan and keep us awake, but without deep rooted wisdom, presence, genuine masculine presence, it all regresses faster than you can say what the fuck just happened, which is where I found myself when the journeyman community underwent a collective regression and acted out some of the most dehumanizing pathologies humans could ever act out with each other. I became the lightning rod for that. So I know my shit. I've been in the territory, not just looking at the maps and trying to kind of hash something out. I know what works, I know what doesn't work, and have almost 30 years of experience. So the 11th of January, I'll be drawing on all of that, bringing it through this film, answering questions, and beyond that, next year, again in September, there's an event that I'm cooking up at the moment that I'm not going to talk about just yet in any kind of detail. There isn't enough meat on the bones, but there will be a deep nature immersion. So we're looking at an initiatory program of events next year. Some will be online. This will be kind of an introduction to the terrain, and also me for people who don't know me. And then there'll be other events. Some will be in person, others will be online throughout the year leading up to the deep nature immersion, and maybe something a little bit more juicy, a little bit more chunky, a little bit more with a little bit more gravity, a proper initiation of a larger community, with a capital C of men who want to take responsibility for their own developmental process, and also for engendering a generative peer mentoring process in their own communities whilst being connected to other people, other places. So the kind of like journeyman, but with ethics and morality and an actual sense of containment, rather than using that kind of space as a way to hide from oneself, which is unfortunately what increasingly seems to be happening. Understandably, the need is great, the sense is urgent. Unfortunately, the lack of skill and wisdom around the matter in hand seems to act out before anything can really take root. So that's the invite. Drop me an email, pauljhowell.com, connect@pauljhowell.com if you just want to email. If you want to have a look at the event online, that's where you'll find it. As I said, Facebook, this is on YouTube. You know the score. And any questions in the meantime, just drop them across. I'd love to connect and hear your questions and start adding those to the mix. Thanks for watching.